McKay, and I'm the CEO of a charity called Medics for Rare Disease. And the charity has a vision of equitable healthcare for everyone. You might think that should be everyone's vision, but I think we all know that that's not true, and people living with rare conditions are frequently overlooked or spoken for. So I'm really grateful to CamRARE for, the last 10 years of support for me and Medics for Rare Diseases, but also for putting on RAREfest, where we can all get together to learn something new. So just while I'm talking, in case you do want to rearrange a little, we will be performing the Rare Monologues here. So anyone who, I've got a pole in my spine, so I can't twist. You've got that now. So anyone who does want to go over there, you're very welcome to move at this point. So the point of the Rare Youth Monologues is, so often we hear about rare conditions, they start in childhood or start at birth, and people live with them for a long time, and how important it is to know what young people want. But there's anyone been in all those meetings and there's no young people in them, right? And so this is our chance to listen to 3 young people about their experiences of living with a rare condition without anyone interrupting or telling them what to say. This isn't a talk, it's a performance. And that's why it's the Rare Youth Monologues. So we've got a few ground rules, okay? So phones not only on airplane mode, but put them away. You know, we're all busy looking at phones all the time. Let's just take a breath, put your phone away, and then make sure you are in this room. Be in this room, because what the people who are coming up here to talk to you about is really important, and they deserve all of your attention. So that's phones, first of all. And the next thing is, it's a performance to be done all in one go. So I'm sure you'll be really touched or overwhelmed or all sorts of emotions about what you hear, but please don't interrupt between the monologues. So leave your applause and all the other things you want to do until the end, when the whole performance is finished. This is partly because we've heard a lot, people don't want to always be an inspiration or brave, they just want to be heard. So we don't want critics, good or bad, in between. But at the end, we'll all obviously want to show our appreciation, so I'll let you know when. And then the last thing is, I do want to give a content warning about, as I'm sure many people in this room know, growing up with a rare condition can cause so many challenges that are hard to remember, to listen to. So today we'll be talking about interventions for children when they're babies. We'll be talking about lots of isms, ableism, and some things like that. So just as a warning, and if anyone at any point feels like they need to leave or just take a breath, please do. But hopefully we'll all be able to learn something today. So that's enough from me, really. There will be a chance at the end we'll be having a discussion. There won't be any questions taken, but our monologuers will be around, and I'm sure if you ask them nicely later, they will talk to you. They're all great advocates. And so that's a great chance. And while you're listening today, we've got a bit of a theme that they came up with. This theme wasn't enforced, and it's around the acceptance of self, but also the acceptance of others, and listening to what people really wish from advocacy. So that's enough from me, and over to the Rare Youth Monologuers.
My mind is poreless, and text rolls off like rainwater. Lectures oscillate between English and, Klingon, and my fingers are slipping. 1, 2, 3, gone. Pencils fall from my right hand, stilted motion in the left. No recorded lectures. Black holes where knowledge should be. You have so many excuses. You're lazy. You will never find work. The doctor will not help me because he cannot crawl into my brain and experience what it's like to be me. Lectures distort into a foreign language. My own writing melts into nonsensical shapes, this insufferable unraveling, this pain that makes me want to claw off my skin in madness. I am not a doctor. so my symptoms are untrue. So the through line flows. I recently led a published study on long-term outcomes of necrotizing enterocolitis. Yet, when such problems land me in the ER, I'm told they do not exist. In the doctor's office, I am a fairy tale. I cry and devolve. I have a nervous breakdown after my first university assessment. I might not make it to next term. I might not have a career. Surplus time stretches ahead, and it is derelict, a derelict future. I try to remember 2022, but it's been cut out. It is missing like the segment of colon lifted from my 2-week-old body. I do not know how much is left because in the 400 pages of NICU records, that one page of answers is missing. 2022 is a missing page. My depression rumbles to life, and my memory is deleting itself. Psycho-emotional anesthesia. I do remember a chair in June. I am sliding off it. I fall through a clinic, an ambulance, 2 hospitals, cold pressure squeezing my head, eyes closing like shutters, darting back and forth wildly. I am wild. I wander, treading water in my collapsing mind. Now, I am waiting in the hospital for 13 hours. The doctor who sent me here was scared I might have brain swelling. I look up how long one can stay alive with a swelling brain and go back to answering customer service emails. I am not dying. I stumble out into the rising sun with a speech impediment, photosensitivity, and an inability to look at faces. Nobody knows what's going on with me, but I'm not dying. 2 months pass. I'm diagnosed with functional neurological disorder, which my neurologist suspects may be related to the necrotizing enterocolitis I survived as a baby. Seems reasonable, as I felt the cold of surgical instruments before the warmth of my mother. But now, the same profession that's applauded for keeping me on this earth has actively shut down my efforts to catalyze resources and the research intended to preserve the very lives they've saved. So you see, no help is an old friend. My brain signals are misfiring, but my condition is under-researched, so I am given a therapist in lieu of treatment. Finally, I get a doctor's note, a golden ticket to the support that I needed to finish my degree and live my life. Congratulations! Your symptoms are finally real. Oops, sorry. Maybe we shouldn't have renamed you lazy excuses, poor work ethic, you'll never get a job. My golden ticket, it turns out, has the value of toilet paper. It will not buy me support from my university or extenuating circumstances. I'm cracking. The fault lines yawn violently, but I must finish my degree. November. My parents text me a photo of my diploma, which has just arrived in the mail. It looks like a cheap high school essay, sad Times New Roman printed on cheap paper. Yet I am lucky. Not every neck survivor gets to go to university. Not every neck survivor reaches adulthood. As years pass, more babies will be rescued from necrotizing enterocolitis. They will grow up in PICU. They will not be able to get accommodations at school. They will fight to live their lives, but with no answers or support, because long-term complications of neck and its treatment aren't a compelling subject for study. Soon enough, there will be such a pile-up of forgotten patients knocking on your windows until the sunlight blacks out. Why did you save us, only to abandon us? So before you cut me off once again and dismiss my words as fantasy, consider how it feels to panhandle for my quality of life. You closed the blinds on me and the others, so why did you save me? My story has been written with the burning page. It was handed to me at birth, but my benefactors forgot to give me water. So it continues to smolder. I do not know where to put it, and nobody is coming to help. So I hold it.
I have so many thoughts surrounding most things, but surrounding my disease especially. That's exactly what the problem is, I suppose, how to speak about my condition to others when my mind is running in so many different directions. What I've kept coming back to, though, is the idea of a new normal. I was only diagnosed with pulmonary hypertension 2 years ago, and it shattered everything that I had envisioned my future to be. I had dedicated my short life to getting into the right university, to get the right job, to live the right life. And I was told that night that university would have to be shoved onto the back burner. I was told I wouldn't be able to carry pregnancy. I was told I was looking at a lung transplant. What scared me most was what my doctors wouldn't tell me, that I'd be okay, that I'd lead a normal life, most chillingly what my life expectancy was. Since then, I've read that at the time of my diagnosis, 5 years was a safe bet. I was unmoored, and it tortured me. At night, I scrolled through TikTok, and as fellow addicts might know, the platform is full of cake decorating videos. Now, what I would painfully come to realize is that specialty cakes are always ordered to mark a rite of passage, a birthday, a graduation, a christening. Particularly agonizing for me, a wedding. Ivory buttercream, more than anything, was sure to reduce me to heavy sobbing in the months after my diagnosis. The paucity of cakes in my future was overwhelming. And yet I'm here, and I'm fine. 2 years into my 5 years to live, I don't really know when it happened, or how in particular, but I'm quite happy. I lead a full life. I feel like I have goals, I have plans, I have direction. Granted, my prognosis has drastically changed since I was diagnosed. The release of a breakthrough drug has allowed me to be hopeful for the future and far more able in the present. But I'm still disabled. I still feel disabled. I still feel sick. My disease still represents a huge hurdle in my life. No amount of pro-disability rhetoric can change that. The reality is I can't run a mile without my oxygen dropping to 75. I can't fly without oxygen. I can't keep up with my friends. And yet I'm here and I'm fine. And I guess I just adjusted. This is my new normal, taking 9 pills a day, injecting myself, making sacrifices where I didn't before. This is my new normal. And I'm at peace with that. I think an important step in getting here was the conversation I had with my sister shortly after I was diagnosed. She urged me to stop thinking about my condition as something that had happened to me, but as something that was a part of me, as integral to my being as my eyes being blue. It was fallacious to conceive of myself without pulmonary hypertension. The latter is a wholly constituent part of the former. PH is then simply part of the ticket I have on this earth. And I love being on earth. I love being alive. I love spending time with my friends. I love making myself dinner. I love swimming in the ocean. This miraculous gift of life requires me to have this disease, and that's a trade I'm more than willing to make. This is radical acceptance. It's not about having a cure. It's about having a life. A full and rich life where you get to do what you want to do. The skills, the perspective my disease has forced me to adopt has given me immense peace throughout all aspects of my life. I grew up in a difficult home, and before I was even diagnosed, I lived with gnawing resentment and anger. Those emotions haven't disappeared, but I feel okay accommodating them in my mind now. I feel that they, everything, are features intrinsic to my life, to my being. I'm far calmer and more content as a result. My disease provided me with an entirely new approach, survival method, coping mechanism, whatever it may be. An approach that touched my entire life and being. An approach that I find to be a gift.
School. The secondary school, the support that I was getting was, in my opinion, the bare minimum. Although the TAs at secondary school did their best and were really kind, they did not have enough time to support all of us. When I was in sixth form college, I did get a hairdressing qualification. That was the equivalent of an A-level. I managed to pass this with good marks as well, but what was even more impressive is that I managed to pass my Maths and English GCSE in that same year, after years of struggling, with help from the college who arranged extra one-to-one sessions. After 2 wonderful years of sixth form college, where the tutors and TAs gave me the help I needed and made sure I was included in everything like trips and day-to-day activities, it was time for me to go and get a job. Before I started to try and get a job, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I thought there'd be support like when I was at college, but it wasn't like that. I left college and there was nothing. I realised I'd have to get a job by myself. To start with, I went round the salons with my CV. I waited and I waited, nothing. So I started applying for hairdressing jobs online, started to get interviews, but when they realised I had a disability, I got turned away. They made excuses about why I haven't gotten the job. I felt sad that I trained to be a hairdresser and no one would give me a chance, but I accepted that I wouldn't ever be a hairdresser. Just as I was giving up hope of finding any job at all, I applied for a job in a care home. And to my shock, I got the job. After not getting a job in a hairdresser's, I thought nobody would want to employ me. My luck had finally changed, or so I thought. When I started working there, I soon found out they would not make any reasonable adjustments for me. And in the end, after working there for only 2 weeks and being left to run the whole dementia unit by myself, it got too much. I left the care home. For the next few months at home, I was bored. I almost gave up trying to get a job. I was sitting at home doing nothing, feeling deflated. In the end, I got bored of sitting at home and thought if nobody would employ me, I'd look for volunteering work. I handed my CV into a charity shop in my local town. I started working there soon after and I loved it. Somebody had finally given me a chance to show that I had something to give. After about 5 months in the charity shop, I was on the till. The regional manager came into the shop and asked me, "Can I see your till badge?" I showed my till badge and thought nothing of it. Then he asked me to call the manager down. When the manager got to the till, he asked the manager why they employ people like me. I was shocked. I felt unworthy and as though I was not wanted there, and it made me think, is this always going to happen to me? My manager stuck up for me and said, "Please do not speak to my staff like that," and reported what had happened to head office. Afterwards, I did get an email of apology from the boss above the regional manager, but I was still uneasy. About 3 weeks after this happened, I was on the way to the shop and I got to the door and found that it had a notice on to say that it was closed today. I was very confused and I was sure I had not been told about this. So when I went back the next week, I asked another volunteer if they knew that the shop had been closed. When the volunteer said they knew and everybody else knew as well, I went to the manager and they replied with, "Oh, okay," and carried on working with no apology or thought for how it would make me feel. They didn't seem to understand that this would make me feel less important, that other staff and volunteers, that I wasn't valued. This, for me, was the final straw. I went down the road after work that day and found another charity shop. I walked in there and said to a very nice lady on the till, who I later found out was the manager, that I was interested in volunteering here. The manager was so happy that I wanted to volunteer there, and when I started, I was so surprised about the way I was treated. I was finally treated like anybody else. And they are so accommodating. I have finally found a job that I love. But it makes me think, maybe places like charity shops should have a scheme like an internship, so that the employer can see what volunteers are capable of and give them a paid role. I'm just glad that I got a volunteering job that I love doing, and I hope to inspire others not to give up, because I'm living proof that if you keep trying, you will get there.
I'd like you all to, in which way you like to do, show your appreciation for the Rare Youth Monologues. So, to give you all a breath, and we're going to get these guys up here, and we're going to have, or people, not guys, and we're going to have we're going to do a bit of a discussion. So, the theme around living your life, I think, comes through. So, Ellie, you just spoke. How, you were given quite a blank canvas, as it were, to talk about what you wanted to talk about. Why is this important to you?
I think it's important because a lot of people who have disabilities and rare conditions like us, they don't get the chance to get a job. They don't, because the employers see them and immediately think, no, they can't do anything. And I think it's time that we change that employer's perspective.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a human right. We're not talking about anything outside of employee law here. So, but I think that story really drives that home. What about you, Emmy, with your monologue choice?
Yeah, well, as you know, I had lots of kind of false starts with my monologue of different themes. But I kind of have a different perspective to a lot of young people with a rare condition because I'm relatively new to the whole game. And so for me, kind of that the defining activity and emotion when I think about the past couple of years has been coming to terms with the fact that I have a disease and that what I thought my life would look like is not going to look like that. And it's only been a couple of years versus my entire life of thinking something else. So that was a big hurdle and a big relief when I finally got there. Well, I suppose it's probably an ongoing process, but when I've made a little progress at least, I think, and that was super transformative for me, more than treatments or things like that was kind of the mental hurdle of getting to a place where I felt okay with the fact that I had a disease, such a life-changing disease.
I like, you said false starts. I wouldn't call them false starts, but you did just say you had a lot of words, but you just said, I've just got too many, I've got this in a monologue that's going. I was like, just put it down. I was like, record it. But if that's what's going on in your head, let everyone hear it if that's what you're okay with. Yeah. So, well done. Lindsay?
Yeah, so I guess mine was the same in the sense that my monologue went through lots of evolution. It kind of started out coming from this place of, after my experience at that university program, I carried this this sense of like rage, like that burning page that I was speaking of, and I did not know where to put it. And sometimes writing is the thing that kind of helps me put some of that medical trauma to rest, which of course became more complicated when I struggled to write due to my brain doing whatever it wanted to do. But it was very helpful, I think, when we had a conversation and you pointed out that there was this through line, and that what I was going through with functional neurological disorder was nothing new, really. I'd always been going through this since birth, and then with my efforts to find some kind of answers or solutions in terms of long-term outcomes of necrotizing enterocolitis. And I realized there was a bigger story here, and you helped me realize that there was also this bigger call to action. So the story was much wider in magnitude than I'd initially assumed. But also the other thing that I struggled with was really, I've noticed that I have a tendency to center what other people think of me, because my whole life I feel like I'm trying to convince people of the fact that I'm competent, or like, no, I really can't help it, I'm not lazy, I promise, I work hard, no please. And I realized I was centering that instead of actually centering my own emotion, and on that note also allowing myself to feel, because my coping mechanism is to very much be like a head first person and to say things are okay when really they're not. So that was really helpful.
Yeah, and on yours, I think I wrote, this is your monologue. Yeah. Make it about you.
Yeah.
But Ellie, in comparison, when you tell the story, and it's like you're going, no, this isn't good enough. I mean, how do you know how you get that strength to fight back?
I think I have loads of friends who have disabilities as well, and I have friends who have been through what I've been through. And I think because I have a voice, and I've always been I say what I think, and I say, how things should be. And I think that kind of helps when you're trying to advocate for people.
Yeah. Emma, do you think with the journey that you've spoken about, do you find is there any difference in your ability to speak up or to advocate for yourself?
I think, well, again, because I think I've had, I suppose inexperience isn't really the right word, but I'm sort of new to everything, relatively speaking. Practicing, I've received outstanding care, and I think at the beginning, often I would feel a bit, sort of embarrassed bringing certain things up to my doctors, feeling like I was, I didn't want to be like a backseat doctor, I think was one of the things I had to get over. And once you say things, obviously the doctor says that's very helpful for me to know. So getting over that, my university sort of failed me a lot because I was diagnosed in the first year of university. And they made me sit my finals from the hospital. It was awful. And told me that I'd have to retake the year if I didn't. And that was weeks after I'd been diagnosed, so I was kind of in no place to do anything, exhibiting any strength. So I had to rely a lot on, I think my mum sort of called them up and was just like screaming at them. But so since then, I think, well, to cut a long story short, and I'm aware that I'm rambling a bit, but I think we could all do a bit more with your voice and your strength and your ability to advocate for yourself.
Medics for Rare Diseases, obviously being able to advocate for yourself is really important, but the point is you shouldn't have to on certain things that are your legal and human right. So we all have to go out there and advocate for ourselves on a daily basis, but it shouldn't be to get the base level of what you are legally rightful to. So if there's one last thing, we're about to stop and you're going to have to go back into the world where people talk about young people. So you've got this last chance. If there's one thing you want to say to this gorgeous audience who've listened to you today, maybe one sentence each. Would you like to start, Linseigh?
Yeah, I think that we should start looking at patients as collaborators and remembering that there are certain things, there's certain bits of knowledge that we have that we can offer you that you're never going to get at medical school, that you cannot find in a lab, and there's value there, but also to remember to humanize us and don't treat us like a scientific subject. Thank you.
Good, absolutely. Emma?
Yeah, I think remember that we're people and that we have full and complex lives around our diseases as well, and just because we're diseased doesn't mean that we don't have lives to live.
And lastly, Ellie?
I think mine would be, don't judge a book by its cover, because you know, a lot of us who have rare conditions don't look like we have rare conditions, and it really frustrates me because people judge you for, you know, and it's almost like, please don't judge me, you know, when I'm out, because I don't look like I have a disability, but I do.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, and everyone, join me again, say thank you to the RARE Youth Monologues.